Good evening and welcome, everyone. My name is Jerry Shallow, President and CEO of the Rio Rancho Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we are excited that you all are here. Today's forum is being done live. You can watch it here live. If you're here, you can watch it Facebook Live. It's also on video on the Chamber's website starting next week, and then it will also be played on Sundays on KDSK Radio until the election. Today, it's a forum format. It is not a debate. It is to find out what each candidate is about, why folks would want to vote for them. This is your opportunity to express your views and to make them known so that folks on November 8th can make an intelligent decision on who they prefer in your role. So that being said, with the forum format, we will do an alternating format. We'll start out with the incumbent, Mr. Jason Harper, doing the opening, followed by Michelle Sandoval, and then we'll do an alternating format from that. This is for House District 57, our two candidates. Please give them a warm welcome. We have Representative Jason Harper and Michelle Sandoval. So Jason, the opening's yours, 2 minutes. Sorry, Mr. Harper.
That's all right. Thank you. And I want to first thank Jerry and the Chamber for putting this opportunity together. We don't often have the opportunity to actually get together and share thoughts like this. So this is really wonderful. I'm really grateful. I want to thank all of you for being here, for coming. I know some folks are going to race right after this to go do some balloon fiesta preparation. So I know it's a sacrifice to be here, but I just want to say thank you for being here and being involved and caring about New Mexico. So my name is Jason Harper. I'm a locally grown guy, born and raised here. Love this state. Went to Cibola High School where I met my sweetheart, Mary, who's joining us today. We are married. We have 4 kids. We decided to raise our kids here, come back to Rio Rancho and raise our kids here. I went to New Mexico Tech for my undergraduate, Purdue for my master's, and finished my PhD at UNM while working at Sandia National Labs. All of my degrees are in chemical engineering, and I've been working at Sandia Labs for about 18 years. And I make devices to keep our soldiers safe from biological and chemical warfare agents. Actually, Popular Science magazine in 2016 named my anthrax detector one of the greatest innovations of that year, which was, awesome, right? It's been a wonderful experience at Sandia Labs. But then I get asked, well, how on earth did you get into this mess? And it all comes back to every night before going to bed, I would have cookies and milk with my dad. And we would talk about 3 things. We would talk about religion, politics, and taxes. And I loved those talks with my dad. And I learned from him that one person and us working together can make a huge difference in our community. And I love New Mexico, and I know it can be a better place for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Ms. Sandoval.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity as well. I was just talking to Jason about how we don't get to go face to face anymore. And it's sad we're finally getting back to it because of COVID. But my name is Michelle Eleanor Sandoval. I was born and raised here in New Mexico. I was born in Las Cruces, moved to Rio Rancho and raised in Rio Rancho. I graduated from Cleveland High School in 2018, and then I graduated from UNM with my bachelor's in business in 2018 when I was 20 years old, thanks to the dual enrollment program. I have a lovely family. I have two lovely parents. I have 3 younger siblings, a fiance, and I have a lovely baby girl on the way. I have been active in our community since I was a child, as long as I can remember. Some of my favorite organizations that have actually stirred me into running down this avenue would be I actively volunteered for Watermelon Ranch, Junior Achievement, the Balloon Fiesta, and then I started my own nonprofit called the Eco Warriors, working on benefiting and helping our ecosystem. So my work experience, I've worked locally for the past few years. I have worked at Bank of the West for over 4 years. I worked for Sandoval County, 2 different treasurers, Laura M. Montoya and Jennifer Taylor, for over 2 years. And then I currently now work at Los Alamos Labs. It was not a competitive thing, I promise. I work there. I work supporting the weapons production team, kind of supporting the opposite end of that. So I really want to talk about why I'm running. I want to run to reunite people. I want to run to bridge the gap between the parties. And I also want to run to be a servant to the people. I want people to be able to listen to me, to talk to me, and for me to be able to hear them out about what issues they're having on the front end, on the front line, and what I can do to get those questions answered on both ends through all parties. I also want to advocate and empower the youth, because I know that it's hard to get a lot of youth voters to turn out, and the percentage of youth voting is so low. So politics is not an age game. We should all participate because our voices and our votes matter.
Thank you. All right. First question, Ms. Sandoval. First question is around education. So New Mexico funds education at a higher level than most other states, including a pay raise last year for teachers. Yet the state of New Mexico is ranked 51st in education. What is it that the legislature could do to improve education?
So overall, I agree with you. Education is the root of everything. We need to make sure that we are supporting our children from early childhood development through middle school, through high school, all the way on to college development. So we need to ensure that we have funding. We need to ensure that we have programs. We need to ensure that we are looking at where the funding is going and making sure it's not just going sitting at the top end, and it goes all the way directly into our classrooms, funding our education, funding our students with the supplies that they need, the teachers with the resources that they need, and making sure that we are being advocates and voices for those that we are raising because they don't have that option to vote. We need to, and if, sorry, our students deserve also different opportunities for learning. We need to encourage different avenues and paths and not just align through the college trajectory. We need to make sure that we're empowering students to work on things such as career technical educations, empowering them to go different avenues, work through, know that college is not the only option, although we're opening up the avenue to them. But there's also tons of labor-induced positions that we have within New Mexico that we want to better prepare them for. We need to make sure the funding is there on the educational side and on the technical experience education side as well. And we need to just make sure that both parties are working together to know that the more that we invest and the more that we reallocate our funds to our children, the more we're going to get a return on investment to our state, because our youth is what grows into our future. Especially now that I'm going to become a mom, so it's like a newfound thing, right? So I'm going to be navigating that avenue and advocating for better education avenues for my own child as well.
Thank you. Mr. Harper, same question.
Thank you. So, yeah, being 51st in the nation is, nothing that we want to brag about or happy about. It's a sad place to be. But I think if you actually dive into the data, we can learn some things, which I think is interesting. If you look at score and how we get to 51st place, what it really boils down to is Albuquerque Public Schools. If you look at all the rural school districts, you look at Rio Rancho, you look at Los Alamos school districts, they actually perform pretty darn well. It's the poor performance, the poor graduation rates of APS that bring our statewide average down. And so in my mind, the real solution is something that we've already done once before. Rio Rancho Public Schools is the case study, right? When I was here, we were part of APS, right? And it was the breaking away of Rio Rancho Public Schools from APS that resulted in the best district in the entire state, right? And APS is in the top 10 school districts in the US of most students. We need to break APS up into 3, 4, or 5 different pieces. And what happens when you do that, so high at that level that parents can't become involved. School boards, meaning more school board members, more members of the community contributing. We are significant and key factor in student success is parental involvement. And so I support laws and changes to our system that support parents. As an example, right now there's a requirement to volunteer that you have to go through a background check and such, and I get that, I support that. But the system right now is completely broken. Parents have to pay real money out of their own pocket, get fingerprinted, and go through this crazy system just to be able to volunteer in their kid's classroom. We need to streamline that so that it's free and fast.
Okay, Mr. Harper, a question coming right back to you is today we're standing in the Career Technical Education Facility at Rio Rancho Public Schools. There is hopes that it will open next fall. The challenge is the state of New Mexico does not fund career technical education today. A desperate need not only for students to have opportunities, but to get those opportunities, we're going to need funding. What is it the legislature can do to make that happen?
Yeah, great question. And this is something that the Rio Rancho delegation has supported for a long time. We know that over the last 5 years, when you look at jobs in New Mexico, between 51 and 54% of them don't require a college degree, right? And so if we just have an education system that's kind of cookie cutter, one size fits all, let's get everyone ready for college, well, you've just disenfranchised 50% of the people here in the state of New Mexico. And so I'm so excited. This is another example of schools being cutting edge and really being one of the jewels in the state. Taking this step forward for this career technical education. I'm super supportive of that. And I'll just say, we were also at Don Chalmers Ford today, and I learned that technicians there who work hard and go through the training that they get there can make over $100,000 a year, right? So college is not the only way to have a wonderful middle-class life here in the United States. So big supporter. So how can we help? The biggest problem is the equalization guarantee funding formula. It's a big word, but essentially in state law right now, there is a formula that dictates what things get funded and how they get funded. And CTE has been pulled out of that. And it's because it's expensive. CTE is expensive. So really there are two things that we're trying to do. The first is changing this formula. And that's a big project. It takes a lot of time. It's getting a lot of minds together and working on that. That's gonna take a lot of work. It's gonna take some time. The second thing though that we can do right now, and we've actually done this last session, we knew this building was coming. We can use our discretionary capital outlay funds. So some of those are coming to help, fill this building with equipment and retrofit it. And then also we occasionally program funds, discretionary program funds. And so we as a Rio Rancho delegation are funding some of the teachers that will be here. So two-pronged approach.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sandoval, the same question.
Yes. So I'm actually the first college graduate of my family. My family members have all been labor workers. So a good example would be my dad. He's actually a mechanic. He works for Perfection Honda, and they do have the ability to make that kind of money. And it can be a job where they can take care of their families comfortably and support them. But the issue in New Mexico is that we're so honed in on college, and we're outsourcing all of our children because we don't have enough jobs here that require college degrees, like Jason said. So one of the biggest benefits to CTE programs, such as the one that's going to be opening up here, is that a lot of students learn differently, and we need to understand that. And I know I've been to schools where they used to have programs like Bernalillo High School, and you could see their old mechanic garage, and it's like we still have the equipment and we still have the areas to be able to enable hands-on learning. And by doing so, we're going to be providing all these students with technical skills, with academic skills, and employability skills. And the benefit of doing this and going through this process is that it's measurable. We can see and we can invest in this process, and we can actually see with statistics and with where our investments are going and how they're going, because we can watch what the retention does. When you offer these programs, you have higher retention rates, you have higher graduation rates, you have reduced behavioral health issues because you're not cooped up in the classroom all day. So, and then the biggest benefit to that is that we're preparing our students to be implemented into the workforce immediately, not having to linger and wonder, what am I going to do and who am I going to be? Because I've been there, I've done that, and it's kind of hard to go through 5 different programs at UNM just to come out to not even need a degree to go wherever you're going. So we need to make sure that we're empowering our students. There's a huge supply for labor workers, a huge supply for technical workers, and it helps us bring innovation to New Mexico, and it also helps us grow our state economically.
Thank you, Ms. Sandoval. Next question is coming right back to you. The labor force rate in New Mexico is 56.5%. Better said, that is 1 in 2 residents of working age between ages of 18 and 65 is working in New Mexico. That is a dramatic drop from any other state in our area, including Texas, Colorado, Arizona, and Utah. That being said, what is it that you would propose or the legislature could propose to bring New Mexicans back into the workforce?
So New Mexico needs to develop and invest in comprehensive career plans such as CTE to ensure that we have a great start to align our students towards a career path and make sure that they're ready for like students lack a lot of exploration when it comes down to school systems, and so they don't really know like what avenue they want to go, and they don't really know what opportunities there are to take. And so by opening up these channels, we're able to open up the ideas of what prospects and what jobs there are out there. In addition, there's a really big issue with childcare. And so I know a lot of people that went into COVID and didn't come out of COVID because they don't have the resources to have their children taken care of to go back to work. So I do think it's important for businesses across New Mexico to understand and be more comprehensible with flex schedules, to be more comprehensible with remote jobs. Because I know for me at the labs, I have the ability to work hybridly, and because of that, I don't have to give up my career and I don't have to give up everything I know because I need to take care of a baby at home. I have the opportunity to not only move forward with my career progression, but also take care of my child during the week and not have to worry about childcare. Another thing that is beneficial that the labs is doing is a lot of businesses should consider doing is they're working through offering childcare at the source. So actually adding it as a benefit. So if you have reliable childcare, you'd be more encouraged to go to work, and the workforce would come out and turn out. So we need to make sure that we keep building all these business connections with small businesses, but also the connections with Netflix, Intel, and the labs, so that people know that they have employability and comfortability going back.
Thank you. Mr. Harper, same question.
Thank you. So that's kind of a staggering statistic to hear that essentially 1 out of 2 adults who are that age where they can work are not working. And we all know that it's not because there aren't jobs available. And we go everywhere and we know that there's jobs available. I was just talking with a small business owner, and he said, I need 3 more people at each one of my locations, but we just can't find them. And so, as an engineer, I try to look for the root of the problem and try to find what's a real solution. And I'll just tell you honestly, the root of the problem is that folks who are on assistance, on welfare, who receive TANF, Medicaid, Section 8 housing, food stamps, when they decide, I want to do something with my life and get a job, they lose those benefits and they end up making less money when they're on those benefits. We've seen the studies. You can make about the equivalent of $80,000 by not working in the state of New Mexico. And this is something that I'm grateful for these programs. My wife and I, we took advantage of these programs when we were young in college, right? I was so grateful for Section 8 housing and Medicaid. But I'll tell you, I had a little stipend when I was at college, and we got a raise, and we were $17 away from losing my pregnant wife's Medicaid benefits. So we need, and I've been talking about this for a long time, this cliff effect or donut hole, whatever you want to call it, when someone gets a job and then they lose their benefits and they fall off that cliff, that is the real problem. And so as part of, I've been spearheading tax reform. I hope I get to talk my love language later, we'll see. But as part of tax reform, we can look at these benefits, how they all interact, and make sure that there is not a cliff, but a slope. That when you get a job and you're bringing money home, and maybe you get a slightly less benefit, but you're making more money, so we can help them climb out.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. A question coming right back to you. Infrastructure in New Mexico is rapidly aging and new roads are needed, especially here in Sandoval County that is growing very rapidly. What is it that you would propose to ensure that infrastructure is a priority? And also, second part of that question is how do you feel about the expansion of Paseo del Volcan?
All right, those are 2 great questions. Thank you. So, we're all familiar with, especially in Rio Rancho, right? A lot of the water infrastructure that was put in early on was plastic that folks didn't understand down so quickly. And we know we've got our road issues everywhere. But infrastructure is something that we all agree on. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle we're on. We agree that's an essential service of government. So in my mind, the question is, how do we prioritize that? And I'll tell you, in the legislature, I see it all the time. Someone comes with this great new pilot program that they would like to fund, and it sounds awesome, but we should be asking ourselves, okay, but do we do that at the expense of fixing our roads or fixing the state-owned building or fixing our infrastructure? And I think we need to be better at prioritizing what we fund. But I think really for Rio Rancho, I think it's a perfect kind of dovetail into the Paseo de Volcan. So most folks, I don't know if you know, Paseo de Volcan, that little stretch that goes from 550 to Unser, it really connects all the way to I-40. It's been on the books to do just that. And as Rio Rancho grows and Albuquerque is landlocked, Rio Rancho will eventually become the largest city in the state of New Mexico, right? Albuquerque is bordered by the mountain and the tribes. We are not. And so for Rio Rancho to grow and for us not to always have to go across the river bridges to have jobs, we need another major thoroughfare into the city of Rio Rancho. So PDV is super important. And that's why over the last 10 years, I've been working with Democrats and the governor. We've gotten $50 million, $60 million for that road. And why this dovetails nicely is with that economic growth will come more GRT revenue, more tax revenue, and then the city will be able to use that revenue to help take care of our infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sandoval, same question.
Yeah. So my fiance lives in Roswell. I live in Rio Rancho. I work in Los Alamos, and I shop in Bernalillo and Albuquerque. And I can tell you, there's construction in every single place that I've been, and there's terrible roads in every single place that I've been. And so it's unfortunate that we have a tendency in New Mexico to start projects and fund projects and then lose projects. So we need to make sure that what we're doing is that we're putting our tax dollars to good use and ensuring that we start these projects, we ensure that these projects are for the benefit and the best benefit of the constituents, and we work them all the way through and we fund them all the way through. And it's important for us to invest in our infrastructure now because we are a growing state, we have growing cities, and if we're not taking care of the things that are hurting and taking care of the things that are breaking, all we're doing is bandaging things, little potholes across the road, and every single one of our cars are hitting them over and over and over again. I think it's important to understand, and like Jason said, where the funds are being utilized and where they're being prioritized and appropriated, and make sure we prioritize on the projects that need to get done that are going to help the most people at the right time and at the current time. And we can also consider what we can do with capital outlay project funds and look at those and see how much we can allocate fully to a project to ensure that we're not having to scramble funds to finish a project, making sure that we have the full benefit of the project and the full funding for the project all the way through to the end, because it sucks to have to see the project start and then stop and only half of the road or half of the things being built are fixed, and then the rest of the half you can see it just fall off and back into your car bouncing up and down and up and down. So I think that we need to just make sure that we work together to talk about what projects we need to prioritize. Now for the Paseo de Volcan, so important. There's so many of us that live out there. That one stretch of road is so long, it's so hard, especially if you get behind one person, you're there for an hour. I'm pretty sure like it feels like that. So we need to make sure that we're opening up that opportunity for transportation.
Thank you, Ms. Sandoval. So the question coming right back to you is around public safety. So public safety in New Mexico is a major concern. There was a report 2 days ago that Albuquerque alone has over 200 gangs consisting of over 15,000 gang members. That being said, Rio Rancho and Sandoval County are right next to the highest crime area of the state, yet we maintain the lowest crime of any city in the state of New Mexico. What is it you would propose as a legislator to get a control on crime in the state of New Mexico?
Absolutely. So actually passed was the omnibus bill, and it was passed to try to alleviate this criminal issue that we have on hands as soon as possible. But the issue is that both parties need to sit down and reevaluate how much and how helpful that bill is. So I can tell you, it is unfortunate that you drive down the hill and you don't want to leave your car parked anywhere because it's going to get broken into. My fiance's car got broken into at the Nativo Lodge, and I know that my dad consistently puts little things to not be able to start your car on people's cars because they're so afraid, and we shouldn't be afraid to go anywhere or to do anything. So we need to make sure that our frontline public safety workers are treated fairly and paid livable wages, and that's going to be across tiers. So we need to make sure they're paid accordingly at the county level, accordingly at the city level, accordingly at the state level, and ensure that they're receiving the budgets accordingly or the benefits accordingly as well. We need to fund our justice system. We need to also ensure and tackle behavioral health issues and addictive issues, because the issue at hand is that 90% of the people that are incarcerated in New Mexico, of the 90% that are released into New Mexico, 50% reoffend. And so what we're doing is that we're kind of knocking people's hands, and we're putting them in a timeout, and then we're just saying, hey, it's not so bad, go do it again. And we're re-allowing that. So we need to ensure that we're holding violent criminals accountable for what they're doing, and also taking more measures down, especially in Albuquerque, to stop it. Because you should have the ability to go and enjoy and to help Albuquerque grow and enjoy the businesses on Central, but you can't because it's scary. And we also need to ensure that we are working on our police officer workforce and showing them that we support them and we're backing them. We want New Mexico to be a safe place to live, and we need to work together as parties to ensure that we're doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Harper, the same question.
Thank you. Yeah, so in Rio Rancho, I mean, we've enjoyed for a very long time the lowest crime rate in the state of New Mexico. And who do we have to thank for that, right? It's our law enforcement officers, our first responders who put their lives on the line every single day for us. And I am so grateful for them. And so the first thing we need to do is make sure that we are giving them the support that they need. And I'm not talking about verbal support too. We need to put our money where our mouth is, right? And so I very much support making sure that those who are going into a terrible situation so that me and my family don't have to face that, have all the resources that they need, the support that they need to go through that. And I'll tell you, the Rio Rancho legislative delegation has done that. We always put portions of our capital outlay funding towards police vehicles and fire and those things. We want to make sure that they are getting the resources they need. But it's sad. I think we all know someone who's been touched by a crime. We have a family friend that lives 2 blocks away from us. Her husband was at work. She went out with her young child for a 30-minute errand and came back, and her back door window was smashed in, and her house had been vandalized and broken into. So we see this coming. So what can we do in the legislature to address that? And I'm just to be completely honest and candid. Our laws facilitate these gangs coming here. Our laws facilitate catch and release. It is the laws that the legislature has put in place that have put us in this situation. And that's because the former Senate floor leader, who had that position for nearly 2 decades, was a defense attorney. And he would not let any bill pass the Senate that increased criminal penalties. And so again, I'm just to be completely honest. I'm a very bipartisan person. I've been called the bridge between the 2 parties, but it is the radical progressive Democrats in Santa Fe that have created this problem. And we all agree that there needs to be reform of our criminal code, but getting that done in the current makeup of our legislature is not going to fix the problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harper. Okay, final question. All right, Rio Rancho Regional Chamber of Commerce, we work with a number of New Mexico-based businesses, particularly small businesses. And when it comes to taxation, we hear from businesses say that it's overburdensome, that the pyramiding prevents them from winning bids for contracts inside the state of New Mexico. The state of New Mexico is proof of that, with a significant amount of New Mexico dollars going out via RFP every year, go to Texas, Colorado, Arizona, do not go to New Mexico companies. What is it you could propose to change this?
Yay, I get to speak my love language. So I have really dived into our tax code because I really believe Republican or Democrat, it's just good numbers. And so looking at how could we address these issues. I'll just quickly tell you what pyramiding is. It's kind of a wonky word, but I think it helps understand the situation. We don't have a true sales tax in the state of New Mexico. A sales tax is the last step of a transaction of the commerce chain. We have a gross receipts tax, and what that does is it taxes every single step along the way. And so if you're I don't know, if you're want to make an iPhone or a cell phone, right? So normally in a sales tax economy, you would just tax it at the very end. But in a gross receipts tax economy, you would tax the engineering work that went into it. You would tax the purchase of the raw materials. You would tax the forming of those raw materials into products. You would tax the assembly of those raw materials. You would then tax the selling of it to a distributor, and then finally tax at the last step. And so that pyramiding, what's going on is your effective tax rate is much higher than your actual tax rate. And that's why your small businesses in New Mexico can't compete, because even though they are making the same, trying to make the same profit margin as a state, as a business in Texas, they're getting killed with all the taxation steps along the way. And so that is really the single most important thing that we can do to fix our tax code, and then have an economy that doesn't pick winners or losers. A lot of states they try to use tax incentives or handouts to bring in large businesses. I don't think that's fair. I think that the majority of our small businesses can't benefit from that. And so by reforming the tax code so it benefits everyone, lowering the rate for families and small businesses, that's how we can solve that.
Thank you. Ms. Sandoval, the same question.
Yes. So I agree entirely. Pyramiding in the way that we are we are not allowing small businesses to reach their full potential and to gain traction here in New Mexico. Parties to work on the tax reform. I think the issue is that the word tax is like a scary word to like every single person, and it doesn't need to be, and it doesn't need to be a scary word to both parties or either parties. It needs to be an agreement, and it needs to be worked through, and it needs to be looked at, and we need to work on, like Jason said, working on getting rid and working through that pyramid thing. And we also need to work on keeping money in New Mexicans' pockets, because when we do so, it back, and we are putting it back into our economy. We also need to ensure we just have a fair and equitable taxation plan across the state, and that we aren't just considerate of certain counties and certain places, we're considerate of everywhere, and making sure that when both parties sit down and look at the tax reform, that we're considerate of what's going to benefit New Mexico overall. And we need to make sure, I'm in agreement that when big corporations come in from out of state, we're not incentivizing them by giving them tax breaks, because that's not fair and that's not just, and that's not the way that we should move forward with businesses. We want to make sure that we're fair to our people here in New Mexico, and we're also fair to our people in Mexico by bringing outsourced businesses, but not in an unjust way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're finally to our closing. So that's all the questions we have. Ms. Sandoval, your first 1 minute, please.
Perfect. So my name is Eleanor Sandoval. I kindly ask for your support, your vote. I was born, raised in New Mexico, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. I want to be a public servant. I want to be a voice for the people. I want the constituents to know that my phone number is available. I'm available, and I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to work hard, and I'm ready to do what it takes to fight for everything that anyone wants to get done, and everything everyone wants and needs. I also want to be a voice and advocate for young voters. I think it's important for young people to understand that by sitting standby and scrolling on TikTok and sitting on Instagram doesn't really help any of the issues that they're facing as well. And they're growing up, and we're growing up, and we're actually the decision makers of our lives. And a lot of people don't understand that, because our young voter ratio is so low. And I really want to be a face and an advocate for people to turn out and understand that politics is not an age thing, and that we can all be contributors to this, and we can all get along, and we can all have and utilize our resources. Your voice matters, your vote matters, and we can work together to get things done.
Thank you. Mr. Harper, closing.
Thank you. I want to first thank the people of Rio Rancho. It has been an incredible honor to these last 10 years, and I don't take that for granted one moment. I keep my cell phone, my personal cell phone, on my website, and whenever people call, I tell them it is my favorite part of this job to try to work out that they brought before me. I love that so much. And I'm not a career politician. I am a dad. I am a husband. I am a research scientist. I'm a father. And I will always put the interests and the needs of my hometown, my community, above petty politics or special interests. And I will continue to fight to make the state, which has such incredible potential, a place that we want our kids to stay at and live in. And I really believe that the sun is not setting on New Mexico, that if we work together, the sun could be rising on New Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. So I want to thank you guys so much. House District 57 candidates, Jason Harper and Michelle Sandoval, thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
We are going to we'll take about a 3-minute break. We have 2 other ones to go yet. Hopefully you can stick around. The next one is for District 1. Catherine Bruck had a conflict. I have a letter official record for this. It will be, we have Jeanette Clark with us today. And then we also have with us Daryl Keith Elder with us today. Jesse James Casaus did not want to participate today in today's forum. So we will go ahead and have Daryl Keith Elder. We'll ask him a few questions as well so we can get that on the record as well. So thank you all so much.